Then things began to thicken up, and after Emily Lancaster was shot he sent for me to talk it over. I'd moved away from the Crescent, and he seemed to think I was going off the case. We didn't lay all our cards on the table. He held out about the Daltons, and I kept still about the two gloves, but outside of that we were like brothers. Then you get hit on the head, and that happens while he's got two men in sneakers watching the Dalton house and ready to swear that Brian Dalton went to bed at 11 o'clock, and that not even the cat left the house after that. In the meantime he comes on a run to find the lunatic he's had in the back of his mind all along, and, well, I'm it. It was after that he offered me a free hand, and I took it. The first result of this armistice, which took place that same night in the Talbot stable as a sort of neutral ground, was that Herbert Dean requested a chance to examine Mrs. Lancaster's bedroom, and that be given him without the knowledge of the family. "What's the use?" said the inspector. "You don't know these people. That place has been scrubbed and polished until it's as pure as. The water which falls from some alpine height?" Herbert suggested. The inspector glanced at him suspiciously. "It's clean, I'm telling you. Floors scrubbed, pictures wiped, fresh curtains. I'm telling you. You'll not find anything there?" "I know all that. I've seen it once, but I hadn't much time." "Oh. You've seen it? When?" "On Sunday morning," said Herbert pleasantly. "It looked extremely clean then, but you never can tell." The inspector was rather silent after that. They got to the Lancaster house and saw George Talbot asleep on the library couch, with his automatic on the floor beside him. They wakened him finally by rapping on the window, for Herbert Dean was firm about not ringing the bell. Once inside the house, however, the problem was not solved. "What about the nurse?" George said. "She's settled in the hall up there. She's probably asleep, but she may not stay asleep." "What's the idea anyhow?" "Why not ask her down?" "Tell her you're lonely?" Herbert asked. "I've tried that. She's not having any," said George gloomily. "Well, make some coffee. She probably has one vice." In the end that is what they did, and at something after 2 o'clock that morning Herbert and the inspector got into Mrs. Lancaster's room, while George, who had relieved the nurse in the hall, stood guard at the head of the stairs. Chapter 26. It must have been an odd performance, all in all. For I believe Herbert took at first only a casual glance at the room, and then immediately got down on his stomach and wriggled under the bed. The chest had not been replaced, and with his searchlight he examined every inch of the underside of the bed, including the box mattress. All this was in silence, with the inspector watching him and half amused. As I have said before, Mrs. Lancaster's bed stood with its head toward her husband's room behind it, and she had been found lying on the side toward the door into the hall. This was her customary place in it. Beyond the closet door stood a small chest of drawers, and it was to this corner, between the bed and the door to the hall, that Herbert Dean practically confined his activities that night. From the bed he moved to the bed table beside it and followed much the same procedure there. The chest of drawers he examined, not only from beneath, but by pulling out each drawer and minutely inspecting its edges. And at last he took down a picture or two from the wall. "Has it ever struck you," he asked the inspector, "that she may not have been in the bed when she was killed?" "How the devil could she get out of it?" "I'm leaving that to you. I'd say at a guess that she was standing in front of this chest when the first blow was struck, and that the others followed after she fell to the floor." "It's hard to explain blood on the underside of the box springs in any other way, Inspector, and it's there." "It's under the bottom of this chest too, and under the edge of the top drawer." "The woman couldn't walk." "Hadn't walked for years." "I wouldn't be too sure of that." "Listen, Dean," said the inspector. "I'm not saying you don't know your stuff. You do.